Computers interface with you directly. You don't have to futz around to get stuff. Computers get you stuff. This idea that computers will learn humans instead of humans needing to learn computers. Obviously, from an OpenAI perspective, it clearly establishes where OpenAI is in the competition for the best LLMs.
With the Apple big announcement that we have all been kind of waiting for, the unveiling of Apple Intelligence. Big part of that was Apple's partnership with OpenAI, which Vinod was the first venture capital investor in way back when. So I got to ask Vinod, what did you make of all the news out of Apple?
Well, first, I haven't caught up with all the news. That was reserved for the weekend. But Apple needed to do something. Siri was starting to go from a reputation to worse, if that was possible. But more importantly, they've demonstrated something that's really important. Computers interface with you directly. You don't have to futz around to get stuff from computers. Computers get you stuff. And I'd done a blog post on this topic a couple of months ago in the information. This idea that computers will learn humans instead of humans needing to learn computers. And I think we're seeing the beginnings of that. That was exciting. Obviously, from an OpenAI perspective, it clearly establishes where OpenAI is in the competition for the best LLMs. Obviously, many people wanted that business and many things were evaluated. And so it's really rewarding to see where Apple thinks the best AI is. And I'm sure they considered where the best AI will be a year or two from now. So in many ways, validation for OpenAI and a really big milestone in how humans interface with machines.
I will say, Vinod, I think they did say Gemini is coming as well. And we think they might do something with Anthropic. So not to diminish OpenAI having a great model, but I bring it up only in that it raises a question I'm wondering about, which is kind of if Apple's trying to recreate an app store, if you will, with this intelligence, and if the goal is to be, partnering broadly and routing to different services in the way that I remember when they first launched Siri, they said they were going to send you to OpenTable for reservations or, so on and so forth. So, Gia, do you have any insight into where you think Apple is going with the technology or even, I guess, more broadly, this idea of how apps and services are going to be discovered in AI? Because this obviously gets directly to the startup ecosystem.
I think first on the comment, it'd be smart of Apple to keep its options open and be able to go to any LLM. But they did make a choice in what gets embedded and built into the OS, enough for Elon Musk to get all upset about banning Apple devices. So they did make some pretty explicit choices and said, we'll keep options open. I presume I'm just going by your reporting. So I feel pretty good about that. But I do think the bigger thing is how do we interface with computers? And Siri is the beginning of what will evolve over time into agentic sort of interfaces for humans. And I think that's the big news.
Dave, what's on your mind with all of this? I know you're closely looking at startups in the space, as well as I kind of want to hear your headlines on Apple too, as someone who's, I think you were one of the first people on this pod to bring up watching what they're doing by integrating chips with small language models. And I feel like a lot of the features we saw embedded into Apple Mail and so forth were kind of in your crystal ball.
Yeah, as you all know, I've been saying for a while that I think that Apple will be the one to bring the small models to market in a way that makes it very real for consumers and developers. And I guess one of the headlines that I've been thinking a lot about is that Apple they really showed that they have the trifecta down there of the ability to build technology, the the ability to build platforms, and the ability to build products all at once. Most of the big tech companies can only do two of the three or one of the three. And so I think it's impressive that they're really bringing the full breadth of their real technology capabilities to bear here. And they're not just doing it in a way that is just talking about the technology, which is a lot what we've seen over the last year. And they're also not just doing it by bringing great things to consumers, though they did that. I think what's most impressive is the amount of developer tools and platforms that they dropped on the market yesterday. And there's a lot of esoteric things there, but I think developers and entrepreneurs are quite excited to have a bunch of new tools with very direct impact on some of these vertical businesses like Vinod's talking about, and a bunch of new goodies to do great new work. At the same time, the one thing that I was disappointed about is that you cannot access these local models directly. It's something that a lot of folks aren't talking about. They've put a pretty intense wrapper around it, at least on the developer front. You can use their Swift programming language and a bunch of components that show up in the UI and manifest these models into your applications. But to access the models directly as a developer, that's not something you can do yet. And so I think that actually is something that there isn't a whole lot of nuance in the coverage around right now. Because as a developer, like you guys are saying, you're either going to choose to go to OpenAI, pay the tax to use that API, or I think what a lot of developers thought was going to happen with this launch was that they were going to get to use these local models for highly specific use cases for free. And it doesn't appear that that's true yet today. And so I think that's like a very interesting nuance about what was announced yesterday that not a whole lot of people are covering. But I don't know. Other than that, I guess those are some initial thoughts on at least the Apple side of things.